Good evening, folks, and welcome to the Horror Corner. I'm your host, Sean Patrick Erschen, and this week we are ranking the Slasher 6. That's right, the 6 greatest horror icons in history and their respective franchises. That is Halloween, A Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Child's Play, and Scream. What's going on, guys? It's a little hot under there. So I was suggested to do this video by Derek's Horror Corner. Now, if you guys haven't checked out his channel, definitely check him out. He's got some great content. Now, he did his ranking videos of the Slasher 6. And I commented on his video. I said, wow, this is a really cool idea. And he got back to me and said, you should do this on your channel. So here we go with the ranking of the Slasher 6. Now, altogether, there are 50 movies when you count them all up in each franchise. There's 50 movies. So this is a big task, guys, but we're going to give it the old college try. And in at number 50 is going to be Freddy's Dead, the final nightmare. The absolute bottom of the barrel, folks. It's really sad to see the fall from grace that is Freddy's Dead when you look back at such a classic like the original Nightmare on Elm Street from 1984, directed by the legendary Wes Craven. And to see it become this piece of junk, you know, this complete farce, this complete joke of a movie. And to see Freddy become a one-dimensional comic book character, it's just a disgrace. Number 49 is going to be the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Next Generation, or the original title, which was The Return of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And basically, this is like a really bad remake of the 1974 classic, with none of the same feel of the original. And you're not going to care about any of these characters. They're terrible. The acting is pathetic. And that includes Renee Zellweger and Matthew McConaughey. They're all terrible. And even Leatherface you're not going to care about in this movie. They ruined his character too. So there's just nothing to like about this movie. Next up is going to be Halloween Resurrection. You knew it was going to be on the bottom. And it deserves to be. Because it's nothing but a straight-up cash grab on the name of the Halloween franchise. What they did so beautifully with Halloween H2O, the way it ended, was just awesome. It should have been a final ending to the Halloween franchise. But nope, they had to throw it all out the window with this piece of crap. It's just a cheap cash grab. That's the only way I can say it. It's just nothing but a disgrace to the Halloween franchise. And the way they just retconned everything that happened in Halloween H2O was just ridiculous. And the whole movie is just like a bad episode of Scooby-Doo. It really is. Next up, number 47 is going to be Jason Goes to Hell. Definitely my least favorite entry in the Friday the 13th franchise. I don't like that storyline of Jason jumping from body to body and possessing people. And possessing them to do the killing for him. It just didn't work for the Friday the 13th franchise. It just didn't feel right, you know. I can appreciate that they were trying to do something different, but it just didn't work for me. Number 46 is going to be Seed of Chucky, and I think everybody can agree that this is the worst of the Child's Play franchise. No question about it. Now, there was always comic elements in the Child's Play franchise from day one, from the original movie, but here it just became extremely ridiculous and extremely over the top and extremely silly, and it's just a terrible, terrible movie. Number 45 is going to be this train wreck of a movie, Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. Cannot stand this movie. I know a lot of people love it or hate it, but I hate it. And I just think it's all over the place. It's just a complete mess. It feels like one big music video, you know, with just no focus on any one thing. It's just all over the place. Did have some potential, I will say, and it's definitely Rob Zombie, going full Rob Zombie. It's absolutely brutal, but it's just crazy. It just doesn't feel like a Halloween movie at all. It just feels like a Rob Zombie movie, and that's what it should have been. It shouldn't have been Halloween. But unfortunately it is, so I gotta hate it for that. And number 44 is going to be A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 5, The Dream Child. Now this is where I feel the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise just went off the rails, went off the deep end, and Freddy became the one-dimensional comedy character, the comic book character, Literally comes from a comic book in the movie and becomes Super Freddy, And that's a perfect example of how ridiculous the franchise became, Now, I like the way that it started, seeing the origins of how Freddy Krueger became, and seeing what happened to his mother, how she got raped by the 1,000 maniacs. So it had a real dark tone at the beginning there, but then it just goes into complete nonsense. Number 43 is going to be Texas Chainsaw 3D. They even dropped the massacre from some reason. So Texas Chainsaw 3D, again, another reboot for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise, which they already had with the remake from 2003, and then they had a prequel after that. And now this one's supposed to be a direct sequel, so the time continuity of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is just all over the place, And this film did not help. And it didn't help the fact that they did absolutely nothing to make it feel like the original 1974 movie. It just feels like a 2015 movie, or whatever year it was, They didn't do anything to make it feel like the 1974 movie, so for that reason it fails. So next up is going to be Jason X. Now that's like the death knell for a horror franchise. Once they send the main character up in outer space, that's when you just lost all hope. And that's what this movie is. It's exactly what you expect it to be. It's just Jason in outer space, hacking up people. And a lot of people do kind of have fun with it, think that it's a fun entry in the franchise, but that does not make it a good movie, just because you get a few laughs out of it, The truth is, it's a really bad movie. Number 41 is going to be Leatherface. Once again, an attempt to reboot the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise, and it did not work. And that's why we haven't seen any more films in the franchise, because it did not do well, Because people are tired of seeing them trying to reboot this franchise, because it's never worked. And it's just nowhere near as good as the original, and they tried to make Leatherface, see more of the origins of him, and he seems like he's almost was normal at one point. There's no way that Leatherface was ever close to normal, I'm sorry. But I did like the fact that they brought back some of the original characters, so that was cool, but overall it just didn't work for me. Number 40 is going to be the remake of A Nightmare on Elm Street from 2010. This is the movie that nobody wanted, nobody asked for, but they gave it to us anyway, because that's Hollywood. They want to make a quick buck. And that's all this is a cash grab on the name of A Nightmare on Elm Street. And they even rip off certain scenes directly from the original film. Which I didn't care for, They didn't do those shots as well as the original. And some of the characters are just lame. You're not going to care about any of these characters, including Nancy, who was not played very well by Rooney Mara, I have to say. And the problem is, she's actually a good actress. But you can tell this movie was just a cash grab for her. It's just a paycheck. And I will give Jack Earl Haley credit. He did try to give his own spin on the Freddy Krueger character. But unfortunately, his performance is hampered by some really bad makeup job and really bad CGI. And it's unfortunate. So next up is going to be 39, and that's going to be Friday 13th Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, which I thought was kind of a fun concept for the Friday franchise, to take him out of Crystal Lake and into, you have Jason wreaking havoc through New York City. That's kind of fun. And it was fun at the last 20 minutes of the film, but the rest of the movie is the boat ride to Manhattan. And then on the boat, you just get the standard slasher movie fare. Nothing stands out, you know. It's just typical slasher stuff. And it doesn't work, you know. That's the problem with the movie, is that it takes too long for him to get to Manhattan. Now, once he does, it's a lot of fun, and there's some really fun scenes in there. And I do like Kane Hodder's portrayal better in this film than I did Friday the 13th Part 7. So in at number 38 is going to be Curse of Chucky. This was the first of 2 films that went straight to video, which was unfortunate, and that's probably the reason why we're getting the remake now of Child's Play, because the series had now gone to the point of going straight to video, which is unfortunate. And these movies were decent, but they do feel like straight-to-video movies, unfortunately. But I did like how they kind of tried to go back to the roots of the original film, and they kind of gave Chucky that look that he had in the original film, which unfortunately was like a mask when he pulled off, and he still had that Bride of Chucky Frankenstein look, which I don't care for. But yeah, overall it unfortunately does feel like a direct-to-video movie. Number 37 is going to be Leatherface Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. Now, I was really disappointed in this movie because I wanted to see a direct sequel to Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. I know a lot of people love or hate Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, but I absolutely love Texas Chainsaw 2, so I was really disappointed in the fact that this did not continue from that movie. This was just an all-new movie with an all-new family of characters that I just don't give a damn about. I don't care about any of these characters, and I will say Leatherface was still well done and well portrayed by R.A. Milhoff, but that was the only thing I liked about it. I did like Ken Foree's character as well, but other than that, there's nothing I like about this movie. Number 36 is going to be Scream 3. Definitely the worst, I feel, of the Scream franchise, for sure. Definitely went much more into comedy territory in this movie. Whereas the original, yeah, definitely had some comic elements, and it was definitely trying to make fun of the slasher genre. But at the same time, it still was a slasher movie, you know. It did have its serious tone and serious moments. Especially that opening scene was very intense and scary. But by the time they reached Scream 3, it just felt like it run out of gas, you know. Next up is going to be Friday the 13th Part 7, The New Blood. Now this actually did have the potential to be a solid entry in the Friday the 13th franchise. But the problem is the MPAA hacked it to bits. There's no gore or blood in this film, and that's a problem when you're talking about a Friday the 13th movie, which is based around the creative kills and the creative gore and blood scenes. And there's none of that in this movie, which is a big problem. Other than that, I kind of thought it was fun. Jason having an arch nemesis who was like an actual challenge for him, you know. Someone that had telekinetic powers, and it's kind of fun, you know, seeing Jason versus Carrie, you know. But other than that, you know, the problem is the MPA hacked up all the gore, so that's unfortunate. So rest in peace, John Carl Buechler. I wish he had his original vision up on the big screen, but unfortunately that never happened, and probably never will. Number 34 is going to be Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. Now, a lot of people have come to love this movie. A lot of people originally hated it because of the fact that it doesn't have Michael Myers in it. But I feel like it is kind of a fun alternative to the Michael Myers saga, but I'm not going to say it's a great movie by any means. It's a fun, campy ride. It's a fun alternative to the Michael Myers saga, but it's not a great movie by any means to me. I think there's a lot of campiness in there, especially with Tom Atkins' character. But I do like Connell Cochran's character, played very well by Dan O'Hurley. I think he's a great villain, and that's my favorite part of this movie is Connell Cochran's character. And his toy factory, and the booby trap mask and everything. So that was the fun part of it. Number 33 is going to be Scream 4. Now, I actually thought this was a lot better than Scream 3. It was kind of a nice return to form for the franchise, and kind of a nice swan song for Wes Craven, because this was actually his last movie. So I do feel like it was a nice return to form. They were trying to go back to the roots of the original film. It didn't totally work. Wasn't scary at all, unfortunately. But I thought it was a pretty solid overall, and it was nice seeing the returning cast, Courtney Cox and David Arquette and Neve Campbell, and they all did a fine job. So next up is going to be Cult of Chucky, which is the second of these straight-to-video Child's Play sequels, and I do think this one was actually better than Curse of Chucky. It was kind of more crazy, more off-the-wall, and more interesting. But I do think it still feels very much like a straight-to-video movie, unfortunately, and that's the downfall, and that's the reason why I feel we're getting the remake now. Next up is going to be Rob Zombie's Halloween. So there are actually a lot of things that I like about Rob Zombie's Halloween, and there's also a lot of things that I don't like about Rob Zombie's Halloween. It's very kind of middle of the road for me, but there are things that I really enjoy about it. So I think probably overall the good outweighs the bad, and it was nice seeing Rob Zombie's different kind of take on the original classic from 1970. It's a much more in-your-face, a much more violent and brutal take on the original classic. And sometimes that works to Rob Zombie's advantage. And last in this video is going to be number 30, and that is Wes Craven's New Nightmare, which was very disappointing to me because I felt like it had potential to be a really solid return to form for the franchise, and in some ways it was. The fact they did make Freddy much scarier, and that is a big plus. But I didn't like the pacing of the movie. I think the pacing is the real problem with this movie. It's very, very slow moving. Every time I watch it, I fall asleep. It never fails. Every single time. And that's a problem. But I do like the concept of it. But unfortunately, the concept was not as well executed as it could have been. I feel like the concept of the movie within the movie was used to much better effect in the Scream franchise. So unfortunately, he did better job in Scream, Wes Craven. So, yeah, Wes Craven's New Nightmare, I feel, had a lot of potential, but it didn't quite live up to the hype. So, guys, that's it for this version of the video. This is the 3-part series of the ranking of the Slasher 6. So thank you for joining me, Sean Patrick Erschen, in the Horror Corner. Tune in and stay scared.